Back in Texas. Oh man, I love it here. So life is good. Thank you for all your comments and prayers and everything. So things are going along with this process that we're dealing with, and I know you guys all deal with the same kind of things, the challenges we have in life. So I have a couple of insights. First with Psalms. Um, Actually, Proverbs. We're past Psalms now, but Proverbs. I think it's so fascinating that most of the Proverbs, not all, but most, they're and we've talked about this before, but there is the blessing, but then there's the consequence of not adhering to. So you'll hear a proverb of, blessed is he that da da da, but also cursed is he that doesn't do it, or words to that effect. I think in our society, our woke society today, all we do is what the blessing is, or what the promise is, or what the positive outcome is, and we never talk about the consequences of doing stupid, bad, evil things. And those are all different. We have stupid, which, we're all there. And then we have bad things that we didn't necessarily intend to go out and do something, but it was bad. And then we have downright evil. Okay, we're not in that category. We don't do that kind of thing, but we can do stupid and we can do bad. And that's really, where the atonement comes in, and things can be made right, the mercy aspect of all this. Now, also with evil and wicked too. Those folks that are into that, they can repent as well. But it's not that easy. And this gets into my next little video or next little portion that I want to talk about. Years ago, and I've mentioned this once, I think before, but I read a series of books called God's Lions, and then it would have another title with it. It's by John Lyman. God's Lions, by John Lyman, and you can get them on Amazon or whatever. And I have a Kindle. I love it. It's just easier for me to read. I very seldom read like novels. You know that. I don't find that I have the time. But when I'm flying or something, which I've been doing a lot lately, I have a difficult time really focusing on scripture. It's just me. I don't know why. I get distracted easy. But if I'm reading a good novel, now this novel, the beginning one, I think it's called The Secret Chapel. It's really, really interesting, and I highly recommend it because of it. It's very Catholic, but there's a Jewish guy that's been converted to Christianity, and there's a Bible code, and it's awesome. I love it. And you're in Israel, and then you're in Italy, which I love both of those places and have been to them. So I guess that's why I like it. But in any event, you'll find it, I think you'll find it very, very fascinating and interesting. And then the series goes on. And one of the things that it points out, and I think this is so fascinating, is what I want to spend just a minute or two on, is this idea of the earth. Now, you've heard me talk a lot about the earth, the sacredness of the earth, Mother Earth. Oh, woe is me, the mother of men. We read that in Moses, where the earth groaneth because of the sins of the world, and we've tracked the earth, and its past, present, and future is our past, present, and future. Created spiritually, created physically, and then which is the beginning of God's work, and then physically and spiritually, which is the last or the end of His work, and that's us. We're created spiritually, physically, baptized physically, and then baptized spiritually. The earth is the same path. So we have this connection, and the meek will inherit the earth. And the earth, we know, will go through transition period, just like we go through a transition. And the earth is in the future, earth will be terrestrialized. And this is the millennial reign of Christ. And we as a people will need to be terrestrialized to live on the earth. This is going to be awesome. And then celestialized, and that's when it becomes a sea of glass, right? And the melting, the melting of the sands, if you will, creates glass and the earth. So there's a lot of metaphors, a lot of actual events, in my opinion, that will take place. Now, when we say the end of times or the end of days or the last days, I've mentioned this before, I always like to think of it as the last days of wickedness. The last days of wickedness. Now, we know Satan will be loose for a short season, right? But let's not focus on that. Let's focus on 1,000 years of the reign of Christ, when it will literally be the last days of wickedness. And I don't know what it means for Satan to be loosed for a short season, but I suspect there'll be just a short little test of some sort before the actual cleansing. I don't know. There's not a lot written about it. So I tend to not talk about those things that don't have a lot of scriptural basis, but in any event, the end of wickedness is the last days of wickedness. And when we have an earth that is terrestrialized, and then we have this connection to earth, we just do. Earthly ordinances. These ordinances have to be done here on earth for everybody that's been born on earth. The earthly ordinances. Earthly, earth. We talk a lot about that, and mortality is associated to the earth. Well, in these books, God's Lions, it talks about the Antichrist, and I know it's a different view, and don't get all caught up in that this is true or anything like that. But it does bring up some interesting things, and what the Antichrist and what the adversary himself wants is the earth for himself. And so what the theory or the notion of these books is that this evil entity wants to eliminate a certain amount of the population so that a few select people can inherit the earth and all that the earth has to offer. And so it gets into overpopulation and all this kind of thing, which we know is not God's plan. God's plan is to bring his children to earth and give them mortal bodies and the mortal experience. And then that's why we're not big fans of abortion and those kind of things, right? And I say that like that because there's so many in the church now who are like, you know what? The mother should have a choice and blah, blah, blah. I was like, I don't know where we've come, but it's not good in that sense. This should be something that we really, really have an opposition to, in my opinion. But okay, I digress. So the ideas of this book is that the Antichrist is trying to eliminate and inspire people to eliminate people and populations so that a select few of elitists can inherit the earth. We're talking about the cabal. We're talking about secret combinations, and it all has to do with inheriting the earth. It's a copy, which is so interesting because I think there's some real value and truth to this concept that everything that Satan does is a copy or a mimic to what Christ would have us do, and the plan of God through his son Jesus Christ, who Christ said, I'm just here to do your will. And Satan said, I'll do this, I'll do that, I do that, and I get the glory. And Christ said, the glory be thine. I'll do what you want me to do. He didn't even say that. He didn't even say I once. I think it's in Moses 5 or 6 or something like that. But anyway, we look at the imitation of what Satan does, and that's it. Where a very select few people get to enjoy all that the earth has. And Christ's plan is that everyone comes unto him and enjoys all the blessings of the earth. Everyone, not a select few. So think about that. That's really interesting. That this elite group, they want to inherit the earth as well, but they don't want anyone else to be in their club. So I thought that was a really interesting way to look at it. So when we look at groups that want to limit people and what they can accomplish and what they can do, but yet they continue to do the things. For instance, we hear about climate change a lot, and I'll probably get in trouble because I just mentioned that. But here we have a select few people who tell the masses, don't do this, don't do that, don't have this, don't do that, and yet they do just the exact opposite. They have their private jets, they have 3 or 4 or 5 homes, they have their carbon footprint is huge, and yet the little people, they need to conform and do away with those things so that they can save the planet. Save it for who? For the elite. You see how that works? It's really, really interesting. Okay. So highly recommend those books if you have time, and if you're in like a mode that I'm in sometimes where I just can't focus on the scriptures for some reason because I'm in an environment that it makes it difficult. And I know that might sound like a cop-out, but I've just realized who I am, and I go, okay, I gotta do something else. I'm not a big fan of watching movies on flights, but that's just me. But so these books are great. There's 4 of them, and they're pretty fast reads. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to talk about is there's a talk about tribulation, the times of tribulation by Ezra Taft Benson. Times of Tribulation by Ezra Taft Benson, and I believe President Kimball was the prophet at the time. So this is probably back in the 70s, is my guess, and it's fabulous. It's fabulous. And he talks about, he mentioned one thing that was really interesting. It's about planting gardens, it's about food. And if I find the link to it, I'll put it in the comment section. But sometimes it's good to do a little research too, and see if you can find it. But there's a couple of thoughts on this, but one of the things he said is that one of the major contributors to inflation is food consumption, and then he defined what that is. So he said the further away food is from us producing it, the more inflated the price is, and it's directly attached to inflation overall. And if you think about it, the guy's brilliant. Now I know he was the Secretary of Agriculture under Eisenhower, I believe it was, so he would know of what he speaks, right? But think about it. If we're making meals at home and getting the raw ingredients, and sometimes we can grow it, sometimes we can't. I mean, let's face reality here, right? But if we're making that meal versus going out to fast food or restaurants or other places, think of all that has to happen with that same amount of food. And let's forget that. Let's forget about the nutritional value and the feeling good about making a meal. Let's just look at it money wise, okay? So you typically can make a meal for quite a bit less, right? So let's say you have some kind of meat, a vegetable, a dessert, and some kind of bread or something for your meal, and you've either made the bread, or say you bought a loaf of bread, fine. The meat, you cooked it yourself, you bought it on sale perhaps, or maybe you had the meat on your own. You grew you had chickens, or you had, a beef cow or whatever. And then the vegetables, you either grew them, or a salad, or you bought the raw ingredients and then you came home and made the salad. Now, let's say typically you do all that, it's probably going to be $5 in this inflated world, $5 or $6 a serving. You can kind of figure it out, but I think I'm close. If you go out and eat at a sit down where you have a meat, a salad, a bread, vegetable, salad, whatever, you're going to be paying 10, 12, 14 on up bucks. So you see how that is? That's called inflation for the exact same thing. You're inflating the price, and then that just spreads like wildfire because you have the preparers, you have food trucked in. Then if you go to fast food, it's even worse, because then a lot of it's already pre-cooked, a lot of it's already cooked and then frozen and then reheated, and all those things are steps in the process that separate you from that food, really separate you from the earth, but that's but it separates you from, and then the price goes up and up and up and up. That's called inflation for the exact same thing. It's called an inflated price for the same thing. Then if you add in the nutritional value and the skills that you learn by preparing your own meals and doing as much as you can to produce your own, and look, I get it. Most people can't do that. Our garden doesn't provide. I love string beans, and just steam them for a period of time and put a little salt and pepper and a little bit of butter on that. Oh my goodness. Fresh green beans from the garden. And we have plenty of those this year. Not enough we don't have enough to put up, if you will, or lay up, as Jacob 5 says, or preserve, as Jacob 5 says, but we have enough to eat for a period of time through not all of the summer, but right now it's really good. I love green beans. We have enough leaf lettuce to have salads. Every night we want a salad, we can go out or in the morning, cut it and get it in the spinner and clean all the grit off it and whatnot. We have enough of that through the summer. It's not going to get us through winter, right? But we can bottle, we can do things, right? And if you have the ability and have a freeze dryer, you can freeze dry a lot of stuff. It's particularly fruit and carrots, the harder vegetables, kind of the root vegetables, if you will. But peas, they're awesome. Beans, we've done beans, but we bought the beans frozen at Costco, and the big bags are frozen, fresh frozen beans. And you can say, well, that's not good, or blah, blah, blah. Well, in times of need, it's going to be great. My point is all this can be done with a lot less expense when we do it ourselves, instead of buying it when it's been separated from us until we actually consume it. And President Benson was very prophetic in saying that it was going to be a cause of inflation. And food is the cause of major inflation. And I would say any consumable commodity, and you could even put fuel in that category if you want, but just stick to food as a major source of inflation. So the more we eat out, the more we're contributing to inflation. And do you think people eat out more now than they did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago? Yeah. This leads to my last point about this talk by President Benson, and that is, when a prophet's speaking, not always, so this isn't like an absolute thing, but think about this. could President Benson have been talking about our day, today, in the 70s? So 40, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, he's telling us to prepare for down the road. So if that would be the case, because typically a prophet's telling you of the future, then maybe President Nelson, the reason why things are, in my opinion, not as, forceful, a little bit softer, although there's times when things are intense, where he says you won't be able to survive spiritually without the constant influence of the Holy Ghost. Pretty intense. But typically it's not just President Nelson, but the others, it's more, well, maybe they're preparing us for the millennial reign. And so we're not going to get the fiery stuff because that's down the road in the not too distant future, in my opinion. And so their prophecies are for the future. And so they're preparing us for the millennial reign, where President Benson, President Kimball, President Benson, President Hinckley, they were preparing us more for tribulation. His talk is called, preparing for the tribulation. And when we combine that with what the scriptures tell us about tribulation, now I know a lot of Latter-day Saints think, well, tribulation, there's always tribulation, and there isn't this 7 years, 3.5, and blah, blah, blah. I tend to disagree with that. I think there is going to be a definite time of major tribulation when the Lord allows, not causes, but allows Satan to go, have at it. Let's see what these people have. And let them, you do your thing. I'll allow you to do your thing. Just so agency will not be compromised. And so I'm going to allow this. And I think that's the tribulation right prior to Christ's second coming. That's going to be very, very, very intense and very exciting. And it's going to be a time where we're going to really get to prove ourselves. I just got goosebumps. Where we're going to prove ourselves. And the more we prove ourselves, the stronger we will get, and the more powerful we will get, and the more emboldening we will get in following the Savior, and until he comes, and then we'll fall at his feet, and we will worship him, and he will be our King, and it's going to be glorious. But I do think the tribulation time will be glorious as well, because every time we choose Jesus, our bodies are going to be renewed and strengthened to continue to do that. So I'm not looking at tribulation as a scary time. I'm looking at it as a awesome time. And I think to some degree we're in some tribulation, right? Things just don't feel the same anymore. Many have said that. My dad said it. He was 94 when he passed away, almost 95. And he said that he's never felt a time like this in all of his years. Going through, the attack on Pearl Harbor as a young man, and then going through, World War II and then the Korean conflict and all the things, and, upheaval, and he was born in 27. He's born during the Depression. He lived through that. It's the saying, like, there's only one thing worse than going through a depression, and that's having parents that went through a depression. I used to say that to my parents all the time when I was younger, because it's like saving this and doing that, and the bars of soap, how you combine everything so nothing gets away. That's all from that greatest generation that went through those things. That really is preparation, in my opinion, and a lost art. And there's so many people that are so much better at it than I am, but that have the ability to not be, here's a problem with some LDS folks, in my opinion, is that they take being frugal with being cheap. and stingy and taking advantage of situations, like insurance fraud almost. Well, I'm just being frugal, or stiffing somebody at a tip. When someone comes and does a service at your home, give them some lunch money or something, help them out. And you can't do everything all the time. I get that, but just a little something extra. Definitely, we talk about eating out, but if you happen to be on the road or something and you can't cook your own food, and leave a generous tip. Good night. It's going to come back to you 20-fold. Don't be in this idea of being frugal, and don't go to Cafe Rio and immediately go and save seats. Go through the line. There'll be a seat freed up. I did a video on that. It's the Cafe Rio syndrome. I'm just like, and they're Mormons that do it. They're Mormons that do it. They'll bring in their whole big family. They'll plop down and take a whole table up while the one person goes through line and orders everything, where somebody could have been using that table. See, so we have that mentality to overcome. But we don't want to just waste money. But if we're helping people out with it, and this is cool, there's some really, you'll find them. I don't want to point it out right now because I don't have my scriptures right handy, but there's a proverb that just talks about food and that we need to be sharing with that food. Those that share will be blessed. So I'm thinking of all my food storage and just continuing to get that freeze dryer just going. Man, I hope I can bless the lives of others around me. You know what? If I don't need it, I'm not going to hoard it. It's going to go out to whoever needs it. We obviously, there is one proverb you'll run into, and it said that the guy that holds his grain, will be cursed or something bad will happen to him, but the guy that will sell it will be blessed. And I thought that's interesting. Not give it, but sell it. Make it available. Now look, I'm not going to take advantage of people and sell it, but bartering is so good. I have food. What do you have? Or they make an offering. I can do this, or I can help you. Absolutely, we're going to work together. That to me is what the millennial reign is going to be about, where our needs are going to be taken care of because we're taking care of someone else's needs, and they're taking care of our needs. And Jesus is taking care of all of our needs. This is the beautiful plan. Okay, I've talked enough. Life is good. You guys are amazing. This is a fun channel for me. Obviously, it's my channel, but I look at it more as us just getting together and chatting and having an opportunity to visit, and I can stay connected. I feel closer to you guys than I do a lot of people. and I know there's a few that disagree, and man, that is awesome. I don't have a problem with it. I'm pretty good now at identifying trollers. And the longer I go with this channel, the more, or I should say, the less I get upset at those that, say derogatory things. And I'm putting myself out there. I deserve everything I get. So, if I didn't want anything negative said about me, then certainly I wouldn't be doing this. But for the most part, there's conversations that go on. And I've said this many times, but the conversation within the conversation is what I enjoy the most. People conversing within the channel. So I'm also on Rumble under Scott Palmer. If I think of it, I'll put the link of that. And these videos just automatically go to Rumble. But just in case, something might happen, but I don't foresee that. I'm trying to be a good little boy. And I understand that YouTube is loosening the verbiage on the jab. I'm not quite ready to test that out yet because the strikes are real, and I have those. So I'm going to continue for a little while until I really see, what's going on. But yeah, that's a real thing. I'd also encourage you, just to wind it up, go to the video that I did with John Hewlett about 3 or 4 videos back. And not very many people watch that. There's some great information there about what we're facing as a nation, as an individual people, as a church. And I think it's very worthwhile to listen to people that have had some life experience, have done studies, done things. They know way more than I know, and John's one of those, particularly about what we're facing with what. And there's some great information there. That's all I should say. Just go to it and give it a shot if you haven't watched it. God bless. We'll talk to you soon from Texas, I hope. I don't know how long I'm going to be here, but I can't wait too long, because the last time it was basically I needed a swather and a baler to get my grass done. And I could have somebody else do it, but nobody does it as good as I do. And I have a pattern in my lawn, and I have to have that. That's just a weird fetish, right? And I miss my puppies. I'm a dog lover. I'm a dog lover. I'm a dog lover. And I'm an animal lover. And I miss them. I don't know where our critters are going to be. I've heard statements from Joseph Smith and whatnot. But we've had several labs over the years, and they've all lived till ancient. Well, we had one that we had to put down when he was about 12. But for a lab, that's still getting up there a little bit. But he developed a tumor in his lungs, and it wasn't good. But all of our others lived a long, long time. And I don't want to put animals above humans most of the time. But we've had horses and we've had dogs, a few cats. I'm not a huge cat person, but if they keep the mice down and earn their keep, they're awesome. But I am a huge dog person. In fact, here's a cool thing. I'm sorry, I just keep going. So going through security at the Salt Lake Airport, the line's like terrible just to go through. I'd already checked in and all that, my baggage and everything. So I'm just going through security with my backpack, and a few of us get singled off to go down this other path, and like, oh great, what's going on? Well, we had this dog come all around us, and the big sign, don't pet the dog, don't pet the dog. And it was everything I could do to not just get down and give this lab a hug. But I didn't. I was obedient. I know the drill. And anyway, go through, and then they, check your ticket on your phone and your ID. And I get up there, and I have a backpack, and I have an iPad, I have a Kindle, I have a battery I take to a solar battery to charge my stuff, just in case, the plane, I can't, just weird that way. I have all the stuff, and you have to take it. You can't put it in your backpack or in your check-in luggage. So I have all this stuff. I have a big watch. So I'm like, this might take me a minute, to strip down. And he goes, no, you were checked out by the dog. You don't need to do anything. He goes, man, take your belt off, leave your shoes on, leave everything in your backpack, all that stuff. Don't worry about it. I threw it all in one bin. Boom. And he said, it's because you got checked by the dog. And he said, we trust the dogs more than anything else. And I went, so do I. So that's it. Okay. I love y'all.